Yeah, I can share it.
Did
Sure.
John?
Do you want yours, Madam Chair, or do you want what John had sent?
Just put it with John's edits. I like those.
Oh, his is in an email. Give me 1 minute.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
So I'm hoping for a quick look.
I have
Did you-
two things open. Sorry, so give me 1 second because I have a lot of screens open.
That's a minor change of
Yeah.
subject.
The pressure.
Sorry, Sue.
I'm
There's
just
no-
kidding. Okay, hold on. Now let's share. All right, let's hope I got it right. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
But I don't think that's, yeah, because maybe it is.
Yeah, no, because
This yours?
yeah.
he changed imminent to serious.
Is there any way to expand that? Like just,
It came in an email, so that was I cannot make this any bigger. It's my full screen.
Here, just sit here.
Can
I can run through your edits for
do
everybody.
you want, can I share my screen?
You certainly can, John. Let me stop sharing. There you go.
Okay, so what do I have to do now? Oh,
Share your screen.
Oh, yeah, you can't. You're in the room.
Yeah, you can.
okay, I can't.
You-
Okay, never mind.
You'd have to log in and Zoom, but the edits are. I can read them to you if you show.
It was at 11:19, if that helps you.
No, I had your email up. I couldn't make it any larger for everyone to see.
That didn't look like it had got the red edits in it, though.
It didn't have his edits because it said imminent. He changed.
It did.
Oh,
Here,
oh,
I'll bring it back up. See, here's, if you can see my cursor. See, I don't know what you're seeing. I know what I'm seeing. Do you see it as I scroll?
that's not mine.
I don't know
Yeah.
what you guys are looking at because I can't see this, like I have two different screens.
Are you looking at a worksheet entitled Capcom Rory Modification 42425J?
Oh, so you're seeing my Excel. Okay, I was not showing John's so here's the original of,
Email your.
Jill. Let me try to share the right screen again. So sorry.
All right. I might be able to share my screen now. I have it up.
It does not, it's funny because the one I'm trying to show does not want to show.
It's an email, right?
Yes, and I keep telling it to share that and it doesn't seem to want to do it.
We can talk about them because they're three red things and we can just mention it. I think everyone will get
Yeah,
it. Smart here.
All right, so
All right, let's
just
put
put
that
one
up.
up, though. Put something up there.
yeah, I'll put the Excel back up.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay,
and I can make John's changes.
great. So I can't really see everybody now, but if anyone wants to jump in, I'm not, unless.
Shall
you
I
guys
just
start
say
crossing
what it
over.
was?
John, go ahead.
yeah, I see your edits. but
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the reason I changed imminent issue to serious is if it's imminent, it's gonna be done. You know, it's not gonna,
It's gonna be emergency.
it's not coming through
No.
this
yeah,
three-phase
sorry.
process.
Yeah.
But something that's serious, that's sort of fairly serious, but not been considered up till a certain point. Those, I think, would make it into here. It's just that imminent, I mean, it means that. It means like, you gotta do it tomorrow, not.
Yeah, that's
no.
true. No, and it's good.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so that was, because these are all really good. On the qualitative, I just moved support select board strategic plan up one level so that staff available to oversee project became the last item. Because I think, in my mind anyway, that would be something we always want to do every time for everything.
So you want it to be its own
Oh,
level and not next
Yeah.
to preservation. Okay, so
Yeah.
then we'd have four, sorry, 1, 2, 6, 7.
So there isn't any more. I just moved staff available to oversee project down one. So the order is benefit entire island, preservation tradition, support select board, staff available. So it's no changes to any words at all.
So let me ask you this, if we're scoring this,
Mhm.
I guess based on our interviews with the department heads, we will find out if, say, staff is available to oversee project,
Yeah,
so. It's kind of a yes or no. It's not really, there's no real. There shouldn't be any variance in that
they
question.
shouldn't be, but they're, yeah.
Well, does that make you want to just take it out altogether? Cause you're kind of like, it might be your interpretation of it, cause we can go back and look at
I
all the
think-
projects.
I
they have.
think, yeah, I actually have in the questions that I was working on. I actually have that one, whether the project is, can be fulfilled by staff or if subcontractor needs to be. So I do have it in a grouping of questions for department heads when we meet with them. But I think as far as if we're voting on it, staff available, it's kind of. It's,
We better be yes. We shouldn't,
we hope it's yes, other
Yeah.
than subcontracting out,
yeah.
that's the alternative.
Well, I guess, but if you've got it in the questions, I'm happy. I mean, I didn't put this
Yeah,
in.
it doesn't really
Yeah,
tackle what you,
no, I was just saying if
This
we're
is
gonna
just-
keep it in,
yeah, I
you
was
don't wanna
just,
be the last thing, because we're asking it about no matter what the qualitative. The merits of the points are,
yeah, and
the last point should be, well,
Yeah.
do you
Well-
have the resource?
No,
And
I
as a
like-
concept, I don't really believe in having something here where it's a yes and no answer.
yeah, and the other thing is, there's gonna be maybe two-thirds of the requests. This won't apply to. You know, someone's getting, if, with all the
It's
vehicles we're getting,
self-contracted.
it doesn't, it's a,
Yeah.
it's a.
That's true.
Yeah,
you
You're
know.
right.
yeah.
So I would just omit it and we would just be, we would put it on our list of questions that we all have.
Yeah.
Because it is gonna be case by case. There's some questions that we are not gonna
Yeah.
ask.
We're gonna
Buying a
get,
Ranger.
Do
we're
you-
gonna get to the questions in a minute, right?
We might have to do this later. We don't really need them until later anyway.
Well,
I
But
mean,
we
I've
can include
got, they're on my computer, but I know what I've written down. I've got maybe 7 or 8.
do you wanna finish this?
Yeah.
And then
I
go to
want to
that?
finish this. I want to talk about
Okay, so-
quantifying it. That's what we have to
Yeah.
get done today, so,
okay.
and then we need to talk to.
Well, I don't know how everybody
I
else
don't know
feels,
how
but
STN.
I agree with Christie. to
Can
take
we
it
omit
out.
that?
Okay,
Just take it out.
yep, Sue, can we take that one out?
The staff available to oversee projects.
Yeah. And then on the support select board strategic plan, which I think support, that's another one that's. There is more room for interpretation on that. It's not so yes and no, but most things you can probably justify it at that. So that's why I didn't like it before. But I'm just expressing that in general, I want it to do that.
Yeah, yeah. No,
I mean,
I,
More than in general, I wanted to do that,
Yeah.
so.
I think. Okay, if we
Yeah.
wanna get questions or should we finish? It says one last one. I changed the word
Employed
employee
staff,
count to
Yeah.
staff count. I just think that's a better.
Yep.
better word.
Yep, I think that encapsulates the
But
consultants too.
We're kind of losing everybody else.
Yeah, great. I like those. I can't tell if anyone has their hand raised, so if you all just want to jump in.
You can probably get that off the screen.
Yeah, I don't need to see it anymore, so
Okay, you got it.
Christie, you can look at my computer if you want.
no, I got it here.
Okay,
Those make sense to me.
you like,
I do. I like the rewording.
okay. Howard, Pete, you guys good?
Yep, I'm great. Thank you. I think that really summarizes what we wanted to achieve. Pretty good.
Yep, no issue on my end.
Okay, and then, go ahead, Christie.
I mean. Could you move imminent issue up to that top line?
Well, we changed it, you mean serious, it's now called serious issue instead of.
I'm saying like,
Yeah, could it be
address
the
legal,
top?
regulatory compliance, imminent issue.
uh,
Or is
you
that
know
just-
what, I think we're putting for me, I think that's putting too many,
Yeah, okay,
you know.
Fine. fine.
The only thing I would add is next to reduces operating maintenance costs. Was a staff count. I would say. I kind of want to say et cetera, because it kind of looks like we're only talking about staff count and energy, and you all can interpret that to be more things than that, obviously, like.
So you could just put example stuff.
Yes, i.e. staff count. Maybe we should do that, Sue, and then we're good.
Okay.
Great.
Can I just make a comment on prioritization?
Mhm.
Would you guys be okay if we flipped address overburdened and maintain current levels? Because I find that the first,
You would do it in the order,
yeah.
so you would go low to high,
Yeah,
or
Yeah,
high to low?
yeah, because if when we're grading it, it's like we're going like this, down and then up. It's just like,
Mhm. Yeah,
but overburden capacity, serious issue
first,
is more serious than maintain current levels of function.
Yeah.
I just think in the line of priority as we go down.
Yeah. so you
Um,
would put that one first and then do the address legal regulatory compliance and then do
I
maintain.
don't know, I would make it first, I'd make it probably, my vote would be to make it second.
correct,
Yeah, not first.
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay,
if we've got legal and compliance.
yeah, that is top tier,
That is.
we go how,
Yeah.
yeah. We might find we don't use those as much as we think, but you know, we're not gonna know until we go through a cycle. Okay,
can she flip
is
those?
that okay, Sue, to, you're gonna
Already
flip?
did. It's already
Oh.
flipped.
Great,
All good. So now I think we just need to talk about how you want to quantify them.
Well-
And if you want to establish more of a value on one thing over another, if you want to just like give everything 100%. And it's all, everything's level.
Can I have one more question to the Bureau, Christine?
Yeah.
On the prioritization. Does the word redundancy need a little something more than, it's like,
I think I sort of like personally liked it only because it could be that they already have some of those cars like on a physical
Yeah.
material level. And it could be that they already have 2, 3, 4 coastal resiliency things in other departments that might not be in that department.
the reason I bring it up is the first one has, we address legal. We address overall capacity, we maintain current levels. And then that one's just got one word, redundancy. What is it about redundancy?
well, actually,
Create
I didn't, yeah,
redundancy?
well, can I ask, what were we thinking about when we thought we put redundancy in here?
That they're like overlapping things that they have. That's what I thought,
Yeah, okay,
you know, that they, again, remember last year, we're looking at the natural resources one, that's one that always pops out to
Yeah.
me. And they have lots of studies they're looking
They do.
at, but then like Crack has their own things they're doing. And then, Lauren has things she's doing, like, and it was kind of like, hey, we need to see if any of these things are overlapping.
yeah,
Well, that's what I mean then. So I'm not saying this is what it should be, but it should be, is there redundancy with other projects? Would be just a little more like the word redundancy to me, you can take that and do anything you want with it.
yeah, I mean, if you're talking, I mean, natural resources is a good example because it's within the department, but you might have departments that are,
But what about like DPW and cars?
yeah. Yeah,
Like, if they're asking for a new F-150, how many do they already have? Is that fall under redundancy? I don't know.
what if we,
You're our car dealer.
I don't know.
Amongst other things, you want to just say is there,
Well, let's just say what do we mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Jeff.
overlap, redundancy, overlap, what's the word that kind of encompasses it?
I mean, as a department grows,
Midnight.
you know, they might be adding duplicated items, you know, whether it's vehicles or equipment. Or two staff for a certain job, which would come across as redundant, but maybe
Duplicative.
it's replying to demand of some sort.
yeah, I mean, what I was sort of thinking is I was just looking at the word, which is why I thought I should bring it up. I mean, there are And it's like you said, some of these are not gonna be used by many at all, but you could say at the airport, for example. If our friend Noah was still here, he might say, I gotta have a second one of these, because if something happens to the primary one and it goes down, we're dead. All of us,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, for me, that kind of, you know, the fire chief and the police chief, they may have stuff where they need to have something to back up the primary, in case
yeah.
the primary goes down. And that's a legitimate thing. So I would say, like, create redundancy is a better than just redundancy, if that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
I'd say that's more, like, on the study side of it, I'd say it's more overlap. Maybe than redundancy, and then on the, like you're saying, with the actual
People then create
capital.
overlap or redundancy, something.
Okay, I think that's good.
I'm okay with that.
Is that all right, Sue? Create redundancy / overlap.
Would you be so kind to repeat? I create redundancy.
Create redundancy / overlap.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay. Christie, are you good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Does anyone want to talk about the quantifying these?
I'll go. Do you want me to go first?
Of course.
So I looked at it, and probably need Christie here, but so we got 3 good buckets now. They mean something. 3 good buckets.
Yes.
So we could either, or 2 options are, there may be other options, but 2 options are, okay, each one of these gets 100 points, and you decide where you want to put your 100 in each one. So you're really allocating 300 points over 3 different projects from 3 different areas. Or we could say we all have 100 points, and you got to allocate them over those 3 any way you want. I think it was sort of, that's where we kind of left it, and we could do either or.
Oh, yeah, I think personally, the comfort level is to, like, do you want to score each thing on a percentage basis? Is that what you want? Are we all saying we do want to do that? You're just saying whether or not you want each section to have 100% or,
Well, I know, let's ask the first question, answer your first question. For me, I don't know anything else other than percentages.
yeah, same. I just want to make sure we're on the same.
So the thing is, if you have, I would say if you gave each section 100 points, I don't think that would work, because you have,
Yeah,
well, you have each section, one section has 6 questions, 6 lines.
Yeah.
The other one has 5.
Yeah.
So even with scoring fairly, you don't have, well, I guess if it's 100, doesn't matter.
No, but I'm with you. Last time, if you remember,
Yeah.
I was like for the simple version is we all get a bucket of points. And we divide those over these points. However we want. And if we want to give, 80 to something on regulatory compliance and only 20 over other things, we're free to do that. It's like we have 100 points and we have these buckets to
yeah,
divide it over. I personally like the simple, I don't know whether it's 100 or, it doesn't matter what the number is, but we all get a set of points to put over these. And
Yeah.
don't have to look at the other.
I mean, I
Well,
guess. to
you
be-
do, if you're gonna do it that way. I
Oh, yeah.
think.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas,
before
to me, the simple is each line item
Is 100%.
is 100%. And therefore, you don't have to. So we all have the same measure. We all have the same measure for each line item.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that, well, because again, I can tell you right now, for me, appropriateness of project budget, that is always gonna be the thing I'm gonna look at like the most, and that one to me is always gonna be more important than almost every single other question on here. So. And yet we want the other ones to be important.
Howard's probably, he's the guru on this kind of stuff.
Howard, did you raise your hand or anything?
I did not, but I'm fine that it's, until we work with this, we're not gonna really know that we made the right decision. But
Right.
I do think Christie said something that was important, that one section has 5 items and one section has 2. And, I think that if Christie felt like that you were dividing it over a greater denominator in some of the categories, we can just really gross it up so that if this one has 5 and the next one has 3, then just, and that's your benchmark, then just gross it up 5/3.
But you wouldn't have to do the math if just we all took each line for its percent.
But what in the end, what does it really tell you though? You know, I'm trying to get to this, in the end,
Yeah.
what's it tell me? You know, what's it tell me about my thought process? And, you know, have I allocated my set of, you know, has my voice, we've all got an equal, you know, velocity of voice. Have I divided mine how I want it to? And I'm just worried that if we make this too complicated, it gets hard to, you know, this is the forest of the trees, you know, it's hard
Yeah.
to see it.
I don't really.
just am
like that We
worried-
did it before with each section had its own value. And then, so you ranked it within its section, right? You can do everything up to 100% individually, but within its section, it has the value. Cost, continuity,
Yeah,
and resilience on that one. So now we'd be down to 3 sections. And we could say qualitative is more important than cost or vice versa.
But see, that's where,
I like that.
well, but it is on project A, but it's not on project B, you know, so. You know, I'm hoping Howard's gonna step in here because I found what we have this last time around way too complicated. And it even seemed at some points that even the maths weren't working within the model. So, but Howard,
Yeah, my hand is up. You just can't see it.
Okay, go ahead, Howard, sorry.
I think that's right. And you started the show by saying rank these in their categories. They're not being ranked, they're being valued. They're not being ranked on a relative basis. So if we're clear about that, then what we did last year was you give weighted values to each of A, B, C, or R.
Yeah.
And you can have them give any of those items in there 100%. Because you're probably not going to give 100% twice.
but can
okay,
you?
well, this, John, I like the simplicity. I really feel this, because this will take twice as long
Yeah,
doing the math. And then saying and then what's gonna happen, John, is you're gonna end up at the bottom section and you'll be like, geez, I only have like 15 points left. That's my worry, is that we're
Okay.
gonna be moving math
You've done it
around.
more than I have, so I'm.
Well, yeah, I think we agree with that, Christie.
Yeah.
But we didn't, I didn't get a follow-up on my question, and I'm sorry. I asked the question. That Jill had said that these were ranked relative to one another in each category. And I made the point that I thought it was just scoring it on a scale of 1 to 100 for each item. And now I wanted to know, do you guys feel that way? I mean, I don't about
yes,
ranking versus.
I'm fine with each thing being ranked up to 100%. That's kind of what we're.
Well, so,
I'm
So-
gonna differentiate between rank and value.
yeah, no,
Okay.
Howard, that's a good distinction, because
Yeah. I would talk about
Currently-
the value. I'm talking about
currently-
ranking.
they do sort of all, they are pitting against each other for points,
Within each section.
right?
Yes.
And they
Uh,
shouldn't, because they're
And
explicit.
what we're
Okay.
talking about, I
I
think
like-
both of our ways are talking about just valuing those.
Yeah.
You know, but, well, I don't know, John, yours is still kind of, you have a pool of money, you have a certain amount, and then that's how you
Well,
allot it. It is pitting against
See-
it.
but
So Howard, I do think John's way is still ranking it because you're
I
using
agree.
the same,
We
you're
weren't
using
talking
the
about
same,
valuing it.
Pardon?
He was talking about ranking it to me, not valuing
Yeah,
it.
yes.
This isn't the overall number,
Right.
and how it's gonna come
Yeah.
in and how it's gonna show up on the line
Right.
at the
Chris-
end.
Christie, I agree with you. John, in this case, I think that if we have each category add up to 100, then you're assuming that you're going to put scores in the other two lines when you might not, and so that it adds up to 100. And I'm not sure that is sensible. I think if there's a line item in a category, so whatever category it is, it's in that category. And if it hits home, it's 100. And if it's just kind of, yeah, maybe it does, maybe it's a 50% kind of thing. And so but then you go down to the second line and it's not appropriate. And the third line
Yeah,
is not appropriate. So now
Yeah,
you
but-
got,
I still think you guys probably didn't do it the way some of us were doing it, and maybe that was some of the issue, so I'm still glad it all worked out okay. But, which is each thing, it was up to 100%, but each line had its own value. So if you're just talking about ranking, it's easy to say it's from a 1 to 100%, like how you feel about it. But then the value is spread to it, that's where Stephen, I think he picked that, I don't know if the committee did. Pete, do you remember if Stephen, did he decide those values?
I can't recall from when we started, however many, eight years ago, maybe, where the values came from. I don't know if it was the accumulation or the result of us all valuing those larger groups, and then the groups within those groups,
Right.
or I don't think that they were listed with those values somewhere. I think it was a result of some group process that ultimately led to those values. So I think it was dynamic. I don't think there was like a static
Okay.
established.
So did you pull up the rankings again? You had that up, and that was helpful.
one thing I'm certain of in my own mind.
yeah.
When we got to sort of the end of the process last year, it was not clear that everybody was doing it the same way.
Yeah, but I did vote.
And if I may,
Mhm.
part of that was because it was too damn complicated. It was too complicated for anybody to explain. And then, okay, I got it, because I sat with, I sat with Howard, and I don't wanna, don't take this the wrong way, Howard, but as we got into it, it was almost like you were discovering that, wait a minute, this is not sort of doing what I thought it was doing. And then we were trying to work around it somehow
Well,
to
yeah,
get our numbers. And then
Yeah.
it just seemed like we were completely lost.
well, that's why that's why I often ask, how do people interpret this line item?
Mhm.
Because I'm trying to gauge how are we looking at this in valuing and rating it, you know?
Well, I think that's good, though. I think if you look at it different than me, as long as we're sort of
Yeah.
the same sphere.
And
Yeah,
as long as we're remaining consistent with the way that we interpret it from request to request was always what underpinned the methodology.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense too.
It may make sense. I'm not sure that's how, what really happened. but-
yeah,
Yeah, I like that the groups, I don't, Pete, you've been on this committee a lot longer than the rest of us. Do you have some opinions about how the criterion relevance works and the percentage of each?
I mean, honestly, having been there, and I think Christy was there from the start too, which maybe is why we have a little bit of a different understanding of it, but I never had any issue with the way that it was all laid out. I felt like I had a pretty good handle of how it was formulated from the beginning. I understand that with a committee that sees a lot of turnover, it's difficult for somebody to come in and be able to go back 8 years and immerse themselves in those original, genesis of how this was all created. And so to that point, I don't have issue with trying to make it an easier system to jump into and wrap your mind around. Year to year, 2 years to 2 years, 3 years to 3 years. Again, hearing it from the beginning, the way Steven explained it, the way that we all were there when it was constructed, I think provided me the opportunity to really kind of understand it from the ground up. But with that being said, I'm willing to entertain however the board feels is best to restructure it to make it easier and more easier to
User
grasp.
friendly.
Yeah, user friendly, easier to grasp, and honestly, which is why I'm haven't been taking a very active role in the recategorization, ordering of probabilities, whether or not they add to 100, the totals add to 100. However it ultimately ends up, I'm happy to move forward with.
Okay,
With that being said, I was happy with the way it was too, but I'm just one person. I was there since the beginning, so it's easier for me to say.
Let me try this.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah,
I mean, I think we've made a lot of progress to simplify it and to make things a little more clear. We don't have to nail it 100% this time around. We can do our best to get close, but it is quite a beast, and we can feel comfortable that we have simplified it. I obviously think, we got to get to the figuring out how we're going to score it. That's the last little component here. But we can rework it next year, but we've made really good progress.
let me, I agree with that.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, but there's one piece about this that I would love to see just disappear. And it's the last column on the right, where we all, at the beginning of the process, we're all, trying to figure out how we feel about this and that, and then that gets together, and then that sort of creates some kind of mathematical biasing, I guess.
Yeah.
I never could see the value of that at all. I don't know.
Well, there
what
was, but the way we're approaching it now, John, pardon me, I think you're right. There's no value to it now. You just simplified it, you guys.
Yeah, big time. And with that said,
what's the problem with what's going on the right?
that's the part of it where we all sit down in the beginning and
But these are the same.
then
What? I mean, what don't you like about it? Sorry.
John's not thrilled about our assigning our personal our individual preference to how everything else gets weighed,
exactly.
which is when we put our percents in the beginning of the season
Yeah.
and we all, try to work it. He doesn't, that's what John's talking about, which,
That's the whole point of the whole exercise. I guess I'm not understanding.
Well,
no,
Okay, let me try to explain it
there's a
myself.
step before we do this.
Yeah.
Before we score, before we take our
Right.
Rorys
If we
and
go
score,
in and we decided
Three-
what
pre-Rory.
percentage it was gonna
And
be.
all I'm saying is if
Yeah.
whichever
What weight
way
it
we,
carries.
when we do the actual
That's what I
scoring,
like.
when we do the actual scoring, and I'm with you,
Yeah.
like, we don't have to.
Yeah.
Do this issue. But I don't see the value at all
I got you.
of going through this first piece of it. Because all it's gonna do is skew how our actual scoring is gonna be looked at.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
To just get rid of that.
Yeah,
That's fine,
I have a
but
question.
we still have to ascribe a value.
We do. Yeah. I got a question for Sue.
That's fine, and then just says the same.
Hey, Sue, so question, as far as you know, everything that we're doing here, is Plum still able to help collate all the data? Like, are we doing anything that's counter to what their process is? I want to make sure that we can still utilize, the value of that, their end of things. Do you see anything conflicting with what their role in this is?
I cannot completely answer that. I did reach out to them a week or so ago just to get a
Yeah.
timeline and give them an idea of what was looking at being changed. they did indicate, so yes, there is a potential that some of the changes, if you start changing percentages and how we roll it out, could impact things you've worried in the past. So why I say I can't necessarily answer it is they need to see what you want changed before they can say for sure that it's not going to impact anything else. Does that answer your question the best?
Yeah.
I can?
Kind of, what might happen is we might need to revisit that, what you're
Right.
talking, and all score it the same, so that the infrastructure still remains, and they
Right.
can still do their reporting. We just need to
Yes.
go and all do the same thing
Yeah,
and not-
just put a standard number in. all of
Correct.
it. Yeah,
that fulfills what that role
yeah,
is.
so
maybe-
any stuff where formulation is,
So,
But you're saying we
because
gotta do that now, Sue?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying we have to do that now?
Yeah, whatever changes you have, to not just the I mean, changing the categories isn't a big deal, but changing percentages and assignment of that, yes, they have to have all of that as soon as possible.
because that would be, you're removing part of the big, part of the infrastructure of how they report.
but
Exactly.
you're right, though. The machine, this is way before AI, all that machine needs is a number in there. And as long as we all agree, like, okay, the number's gonna be 10 or whatever it is, straight down the line. I don't think that will stop from doing what it
No,
normally does.
no, it will, and it'll equate all our values together.
Yeah,
And then from after that, then we're all the same.
yeah,
But we might need to keep that step in there.
Yeah, that would be fine if we wanted to go through and do that right now, but this was designed so that each section still had its own percentage within the overall number. So we have to decide between the qualitative and the prioritization and the cost sections. That breaks up.
Except for, I think that we were doing it wrong before and we were doing it for a different reason. And where we're headed now is, again, very simple, very straightforward. There's no reason to justify doing that.
I don't know. The only reason I disagree with that, and well, I'll do what you guys want, but to me, heritage, tradition, legacy, culture doesn't, it's not an equal to appropriateness of project budget. Like,
But won't that come out in your evaluation?
should.
yeah, but
It
I mean,
should,
that,
it should.
And you
Yeah.
shouldn't really be able to tell me that I gotta think the same way, so.
I'm not, that's not what those were doing. I think you guys, we tried to talk to you all about how it worked last year and it just.
Yeah.
Anyway,
To Peter's
Let's-
point, just for new members. That's a tough step. That's tricky,
oh, it is. I
and
totally
it
agree.
just, it sets you off on a very bad, like, this is all over the place, but,
I know.
Yeah, but
I
if
mean,
we
when
all
it-
do, if we all do
wasn't
this the
the
same
same.
way, if we all do this the same way, when we fill these out, whichever way it is, the relative answer will be what we want to see. To be able to do the standard deviation.
What do you think, Jim? What's your take?
So you guys wanna rank it so that everything, it's up to 100% each line? Is that what we're saying?
That's my
Uh,
preference. Christie, is that yours?
Yeah.
I think that would be.
So
my-
we have how many lines? 5, 9, 16 lines or something like that?
Yeah, but to John's point, I do think we simplify that first step. That those individual valuations, because I think the value,
Yeah.
you're, now that's duplicating valuation, you're valuing it. It's weird, because what's gonna happen is you're valuing, and I know it all comes out in the math, and it probably makes it even finite. Data. But you're saying to me, heritage and tradition is, I find, more important than resilience, but then you might be valuing a resilience item more, and
I
then you're just
know.
going like this,
I
and
know.
there's not this one, scale.
rank it
You're,
low.
you're doing all this like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly
Okay.
fine to do what you and how I was saying, when it comes to when we're doing it, it's just that first step. I hate it. It seems to me like it just does everything you just said, and it then makes-
Overthinking it.
it's overthinking it, and we don't know, in fact, now,
I think
like,
Stephen was taking himself out of it. I think that's why he did it. He didn't want to be the one to decide, like,
Yeah.
when you rank something low and
Yeah.
it even had a lower percentage ascribed to it, is it better?
Yeah, and listen, I've been in Capcom for years. This is Peter, you know. I think the committee with this and without it has made great suggestions.
Yeah.
Like, this is a vehicle to help us.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay,
and I
so then
think,
it'll all just add up to 100%. Each line's gonna have to, horizontal line's gonna add up to 100 and the bottom's gonna add up to 100, yeah?
that's what I think we start with that. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
And so how we value it is our percent.
We could just value it as a group.
So-
The thing that got confusing for people's continuity A, because there was the required, you know, to maintain meaningfully prevent, and then allows for enhancement to function. Those trip people up a lot, because, you know, if you said something on the first one and the others were 100%, pretty much, if you.
so I just want to make sure I'm understanding it, so. This line.
Yep.
Will add up. To 100, you can put anything you want from 0 to 100.
Yes,
Correct.
Each one of us.
yes,
Correct.
We can all do that, and then if I could, at the bottom. Well, there is no bottom, is there? Yes, for this. No, there is no bottom. It's just each line. I'm good with that. If this is gone, I'm good with that, because that's accurate. That's really telling you what you think, what I think, what you think.
Yeah. You could be 80%, I could be 20.
Yeah,
And
and that's fine.
that,
Yeah.
and everyone that's in
Yeah.
between, and that comes to
Yeah.
a very accurate number on how we feel, how this committee feels about it.
yeah. So then if it's 18 things and it comes out to, you know, 1,800%, then it's whatever percentage.
But it is a good reason for keeping the list a little tighter.
Yeah, that's why,
The number of, you know, on our, whatever it was, we did
Yeah,
today.
Yeah.
The tighter that is.
yeah, which I think we've done that.
Yeah, I do.
that's why I kept wanting to reduce them.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Maybe
But
each
what's
one
the
more.
recommendation on the table then?
You're gonna value each thing up to 100%.
Yeah,
Each line I,
what are we
And
doing
then-
to the beginning that we were just talking about? We're gonna weight these categories?
no,
Right.
Good,
Now,
Do we-
everything,
that's great. Do we need the last one? I don't think we do. Cause that's where some of the math goes. So so we're not gonna be doing the G roar button or whatever it is. Should put my glasses
Roar.
on. Roar.
yeah,
It's small without glasses.
this is so much simpler. So much simpler.
Oh, yeah.
So is it okay, Madam Chair, if I ask a question? For clarification, we're getting rid of the G Rory column, or, so this, every line in this column that says criterion of relevance to CR is gonna say 100? And no more weighting them at all?
See,
We're not gonna weight them.
Okay,
right, so
You're gonna
you
weight
do
it
understand that
Fine.
because there will be no balancing of one against another. And we're guessing that the arithmetic ultimately will serve us well.
yeah.
So
We'll have to go through a season and see. I mean,
I mean, listen, the fact is, you will get accurate measures. It's just a matter if we're, like, I was just, for a second there, I was just thinking like, you know, are there any unintended consequences for them to pit against each other? You know, but I,
listen, when we start scoring and we don't like what.
You're pitting it against itself. That's what I think they feel like it's making it more level, but
yeah,
I'm a pity,
don't like your number at the end out of your 1,600, points, let's say, if you don't like that, oh, I didn't want that to score high and it came at 75%, and I really wanted it at 30, you're gonna just go back and change it till you get there.
Yeah, I think that,
That's true no matter how we do it.
yeah, I think that, yeah,
May
I
I-
mean, there,
May I propose that in the end, if we find as we start working through the first few that this isn't gonna work, it's very simple to create to do this in a spreadsheet. So everybody just gives like me the numbers and I'll put them in the spreadsheet. It does the exact same math as this automated program's gonna do. So this is not our only bite at the apple.
We have a backup plan, Howard.
Yeah, I
I
think we
think-
can,
yeah.
we can fix it manual if we need to.
All right, we're gonna come to
Right.
your house, you're gonna break out the wine and. we're
There
gonna
we
make
go.
wine
Right.
it.
Oh, please,
Right.
this would be something you do on your lunch hour.
Nautilus.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're opening the
Nautilus,
window.
Howard. Get the captain's table.
Right.
Okay, I'm okay with this. It's fine. I just already know.
we're gonna still get good value.
Just Peter, just for that comment, I had the office with the most comfortable sofa. And so,
Ah.
yeah, I would come in the morning and people were sleeping on my sofa. I mean,
I was gonna say,
it was the place to be.
that's what happens when you work at the office 24/7, Howard.
Yeah, it must be.
Hmm.
so when you've all stopped hallucinating, what we do have to be careful of is the way, Sue, when you explain this to the programmers or wherever they are, we're not asking them at this moment to like take this out of the software. We're just saying, we're gonna put a start value in there that's like, we're just gonna all sit around, and it might, for example, I think it might even just be one straight down the line, because all you're trying to do is to take
To
it
level
out.
it.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
trying to level it. So it's not like we need to spend 100 grand, like taking this piece out and taking, no,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll,
we're just not ascribing a value to it.
yeah.
So what I would recommend, because I will say Stephen was very good about any changes he wanted, he, especially regarding the percentages, he would
Yeah.
type them all up and make it as clear as possible, and I just forwarded them to Plum, so I wasn't necessarily having to explain. So maybe if one of you could doctor up this page so that I am getting right, I'm relaying what you're all saying to Plum correctly. So that maybe, I can tell you how I'm looking at it, but if it's not what you guys are deciding that you want, it won't be relayed properly to Plum. So it might be best that someone takes this page, not necessarily the categories. I'm fine with the categories. That's easy. Or I can send the spreadsheet back around and someone can doctor that to show what you're
Essentially-
doing with the percentages and changing
Yeah, essentially everything is going to be
100.
correct. So then when it all gets tallied up, and we have how many lines? 16 lines, and keep asking. No.
15 is what I counted when I.
Yeah,
quick
so
look.
at 1,500%, which is what it'll,
10,
it
11,
could be the
12,
maximum
14.
if you rank the heck out of everything. 1,500% would be the maximum, right? And so if I rank something and my percentages, it only comes out to,
1,100
then that's the percentage.
of
The
of
1,100 out of 1,600.
the entire request.
I think that's what you're saying to do. I think it's the easiest.
And I like that. I think that's,
Yeah, you said that from the beginning about just having the overall number of. Does that make sense, Sue? I can send it to you.
That would be great if you could, because
There's no having a value. We're not weighting it.
I understand that.
So we're not weighting it. So I think basically you can get rid of 3 of the columns. And then in the end.
And that's what I was understanding you were saying as well.
Yeah.
And I just want it to be clear to Plum, because, we don't want to be leaving it for them to try
Too
to.
simple.
So, yeah,
So when do we evaluate? Like, do our pages, our,
Well, I
when
think,
do we,
I think we're saying they're all equal.
yeah, I know, but I'm saying, when do we do that?
I think we can tell them now, like Howard said, like John
Oh.
said, they can all just be a 1 or a 100.
So they access it, put it all in one?
If you want
Well,
everything
I'm-
to be equal
yeah.
against each other.
I mean, we should probably ask them the question is,
Yeah,
what's the standard value that needs to go in every line so that it takes out weighting? And
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's probably gonna be 110 or 100 or something like that.
yeah,
But they should tell.
They're just gonna have to calculate the percentages
Yeah.
of the overall
Person.
percentage.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or you could say it's points instead of percentage, and then they make a percentage. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but
Yeah. Just gotta make sure that whatever you plug in doesn't like affect, still affect like how we're doing it. Like whether you go with a 10 or a 1,
yeah.
if we all do
Yeah.
10,
yeah,
or we all do 100, or we all do 1
Well, it's
or
almost
0, what, like, is 1 and 10 gonna do something different in the end?
no, and
'Cause
so
it's-
what I was thinking, let's just say it is 1, let's say it's 1.
Yeah.
Then that column gets hidden, we don't ever see it again.
Yeah,
They put-
that's what she's gonna get rid of
Yeah.
all three of those.
They'll put
columns.
the standard
Hmm.
value, and then it's done, we don't ever, it's not like we get a chance to change the line, it's gone, it's gone. It's still in the program,
Yeah.
but it's not a data entry thing for us anymore.
All right,
Do you think it would be good if we could redo this with our 15 lines and then get together as a group when they've done what it, because it doesn't sound like they've got to do a lot of changes. What they just got to stop doing is.
Yeah.
And then like, maybe we have a few hours one day and take, 5 projects from last year and do it, and see
See how it comes out?
how it comes out,
Yeah.
see how it feels.
I'm always fine with me to go over it.
that's fine. We don't know when Plum will have it ready though, right, Sue? Takes
Right,
Month or 6 weeks or something like that. We don't really have to be cranking on that part of it till September.
and I would recommend if you're gonna try it out, that we just put a test project in, because you can't go back and change last year's numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
We wanna
Yeah.
be able to maintain the integrity of the data that's already in there for prior projects.
Mhm.
So
But
what,
I mean, testing of software is
The
a pretty
DPW or
standard.
something building or something like that,
Yeah.
because we're not gonna look at that for a while again,
Yeah.
and like, we could just test that one.
Yeah.
That's a good big project to practice it on.
Yeah, I mean, this is how software developers work, or they used to, okay, here
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Play with it.
yes, I do understand that. It's just, there's a lot of behind the scenes, like I advanced the projects through the different stages. So try and use a project that's already been RORI'd and moved to town meeting stage or approval stage, we wouldn't be able to change that
No, no, no.
data. So I would
Okay.
have to create a dummy, recreate the public works facility, something. That's not a problem at all.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we should just do a dummy for the DPW
Yeah.
building, and then maybe we can all
Yep.
test it out one day, and whenever you're ready, Sue, that'll be the next thing we do, but,
That sounds like a wine and cheese thing.
That could be.
all right, my house,
Yeah,
forum and Zoom at my house. That
there
sounds
you
good.
go.
All right, that makes sense. Anybody else have anything on this?
No, but can we have a little discussion on questions?
Yes, but I do. Yes. Quickly, I really want to talk about the schedule with Sue, because she sent around the draft schedule.
I can go over those, what I had so far. I have got them on my computer, but I was able to,
Sure, read them up.
I'll just read them real quick.
These are the questions for the department heads and things like that we were just gonna have pro forma.
Yeah,
We could
Peter,
use them, we could not use them, but it would be good for the department heads to have them, and then they're more prepared when they come with their requests, that they're kind of anticipating what we want to know from.
yeah, Peter, we figured like a list of questions for department heads that we think are important, but maybe not are for our reporting document, so case by case, these questions might come up, but it would be nice if we're all exposed to them, so we don't miss the opportunity
Mhm.
to ask. And so I'll just run through them really quickly, then we can discuss. How much has been spent on the project so far? What is the proposed total project cost? Have you considered inflation if it's a multi-year project? What are the preventive maintenance records on the vehicle getting replaced?
Hmm.
Could this be a line item in your general budget? How much do you currently have in your account balance for this project? is the project done in-house or are you subcontracting? To that point, we just did, what is community perception? So that's what I had so far.
Those are good.
Okay.
They're great.
They're gonna have a heart attack when they walk in here.
Well, it's case by case.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of these will not apply,
No,
but
it's
we put them
great.
all down because some will apply, you
Yeah.
know.
You know, it makes them, and I don't mean this in a Zeminus kind of thing, but it makes department heads really think about what they're gonna put on the piece of paper. When they know that, and you've given them time to think about this. It's not like you're gonna,
Specific
gotcha.
questions that they already ask, and then when they come in, then they'll have this to work with
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, we could, you know, to John's point. I was thinking when they come in, we can ask the question, but this wouldn't be a bad document.
No, we should
of-
give it to
of-
them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, give it to them so they come in with these answers,
Yeah, you
right?
got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it to them a month in advance.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
it. I had,
So
so,
will that be a problem at all from finance or from town administration? You
No,
know,
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think that would be great for them to have them in advance.
Yeah.
And it's really
there's nothing
just,
we haven't done.
yeah, it's really, we're not asking for numbers. This is all narrative questions.
yeah,
You know, there's a few obviously budget item there's, but that's something they should know.
these are insightful questions that a knowledgeable department head should be able to answer, and especially if you're giving them some kind of lead time to.
I would add one in there, if you know, because they, on their forms, they do the low, medium, high, which is what they're asked, you know? And I would say if it's not ranked high, why not? Could be another question for them to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to, I just, I wouldn't want to give them.
We don't
I
want too
love,
many.
well, I love that department heads, I love when people rate things low, because that's honesty. You know, I love, it
Yeah.
just shows like they're being honest about, this is a low priority,
No,
you know,
I
who
do, that's
doesn't
why
just
I
shoot,
think That's
yeah,
a
you
good
know,
question.
but it is a good question.
Well, maybe it's more, you know, if it's high, why is it high and why you do it last year? And
Yeah,
let's see it different ways.
yeah, I mean,
To be fair, it also, I mean, those are a lot of questions that just come up through the general course of discussion with department heads in person, and somebody might have already
Yeah.
said it, but I think they would appreciate having these questions in advance instead of getting,
Yeah.
ask them on the meeting floor, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, we agree.
Right.
We're trying to keep the
They're
process a
prepared.
little tight, I
Yeah.
think.
Sue had a question, I think she was gonna speak.
Actually, thank you, Christy. I had a recommendation on your question regarding, is this something that could be in your operating budget? You might want to expand upon that because will it impact your operating budget in the future? You know, someone buys a new software package, but it has an annual licensing fee. Well, that's an increase to their annual budget going forward as well. So, because with capital, a certain dollar amount kicks it into putting a request in
Yeah.
for the committee, but there are impacts to their operating budget as well. So it's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good, I'm
Yeah.
writing that down now.
yeah. That's really
Yeah.
good. Because up and down, right? Okay, so you've got this great innovative idea,
It's because I do.
and you want 100,000 for it, but what's it gonna do then next
Right.
year?
Right.
How much do you take out of your operating
Yeah.
budget?
But I think right. I think if, like, for example, the vehicle, what are your maintenance records? Might be years late, but at least now if we get the conversation more in depth about vehicles, I think that it'll start to sort of think about it. With the vehicle in place and have it better, maybe they'll do it better at keeping.
And this is, just like we're
Pushing
improving
things
our process,
Yeah,
they hopefully will change their process a
Yeah.
little bit and have.
so I'll email you that and then everyone
That's great.
can add to it, but
I
I think
had-
it's good.
Yeah, so I was wondering as well, Christine, to add on to that. The 15 areas we've got, I would like to ask a department head, so, how does this then support the select board plan? What is it about this that does that?
Yeah.
That's a
I like
great.
you're saying it's gonna maintain current service levels. Well, how does it do that? You know, and I wonder if, with Krista's set of questions, maybe we should even give them this and say, you know, this is the criteria that drives the capital process. These are the things that the committee, this is what they're looking at as they go through these 3 months or whatever, so that they can see that there is a bigger picture here than just what's on their piece of paper. And, you know, they ought to be thinking about whether or not what they're asking for, where does that fit in all of this?
Yeah, I agree. I think we will share that with them.
Yeah,
And
but it could be
they
on the
should
same
able to-
document that we give them.
Well, they
So-
should be able to see that on their, when they're online too, yeah, Sue?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's also on the request form when they initially, it's part of the Plum data of how it supports the strategic plan.
No, sorry, Sue. I think
Oh,
he's
I
to show them actually what our criteria are that we're
Yeah.
ranking. He was hoping that they could see that as well.
I'm not sure.
Not
They
our
might-
rank or
They
values, but
they have access to Plum. I just don't know if they're able to see
They don't
that.
need access to Plum, you know, we
Well,
can
yes, they
just.
do. They have to enter their projects.
No, okay, wait,
So that way-
okay, let's not overcomplicate this, all I'm
No,
saying
no,
is, can we make sure they know that the committee that they're coming to present to, this is what is driving them? So, you know, just send them an email.
Well, I think this is what this will do this will
Yeah.
do that, you know,
So,
um,
And we can just put that at the bottom of that form and just say
Yeah.
this is what they're looking
yeah,
at.
yeah.
Okay, and everything's getting weighed, yeah. Leave it at that. Okay, Sue, do you guys care if we move on from that?
No,
Well, Sue, do you want?
I'll send it to you and you can.
Yeah.
Take it from there.
Thank you for doing that. Taking a first practice, sounds good.
Place the first rank.
Sue, do you want to talk about the schedule a little bit?
Sure. I only sent it to you, Madam Chair, because that was how the process had worked in the past, that Stephen would make all his edits to it before it would go anywhere. But, sure, do you want me to share it on the screen or
You
no?
can, I know it's just draft, but I wanted to,
Sure.
that's fine with me. Thank you for doing that, Sue, look good.
So the reason we're starting, obviously, the process in-house is already beginning, so we needed to kind of fold it into our whole internal process and when it starts lining up for the meetings to begin. So that was why I
Yeah.
had to get this drafted.
So I kind of don't think, from my perspective, maybe Donna weigh in, but the finance committee is not gonna meet and decide like who they're gonna appoint to different committees until July the 1st. So we won't have that finance committee rep until, July 2nd. So I was gonna suggest that we not I'm trying to think if there. And what about you all?
on the planning board, no idea. I mean, we are in.
Probably July or something
Yeah.
as well. Okay. So, okay, so I don't know that we need to meet until July, I guess is what I'm asking you all, if that seems good, and then we should know based on the other committees who's gonna be on the committee. Does that make sense?
That's to me.
Okay, Dawn they decided that, I guess last night, right, Dawn? I don't know if she's still on, but they did. So, she'll be the select board rep again, which was great.
Yep.
Is she on it all?
I believe she's still on.
Okay, Dawn, if you're there.
Cool.
We had a question for
Sorry,
you.
I'm here. Yes, I'm the rep. If
Oh,
you'll
great.
have me.
Can we ask you a question? I
Yeah.
did watch this board last night. Are you all deciding on June 11th if you're going to actually have a special town meeting, or is it more you're talking about it, or do you have to decide by then?
I have the feeling from the tone last night that we're thinking about just pushing everything to the annual, but I would say June 11th will be telling in terms of whether there is a special.
Okay, okay. I was just thinking that for us in case we had to look at something again and we're not, and you know, if. What would change?
I
and
just
what
say, I
didn't.
think with the way the votes went, the board was definitely feeling like more work needs to be done on a lot of things.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
and other than that, so the other thing that didn't pass that we recommended was town employee housing.
Hmm.
The bike path passed. The capital expenditures passed. So I think on the whole, it was, you know, I think our recommendations,
So you good? Follow it? Follow
Yeah.
suit? Yeah.
yeah. So I didn't know if anybody had any other comments about town meeting and the ballot, but
No, well, I guess if. With our island home, I mean, we were part of that process. First time around, last year. So if something different is coming up. I would hope that we would be part of that process to look at it and come in just the way we did.
yes, the
Before.
finance committee's always
Yeah.
demanded at capital look at
Yeah.
projects. So depending on who the new finance chair is, then,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's been precedent, which is good, because they really don't look at it until.
Especially if there's new information, you know.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and the DPW, they didn't get their design money. So I'm guessing that they're gonna regroup too, but I don't know.
They've
It
got, DPW's got a lot of way to go.
Yeah,
was big,
They got a lot of.
but
way
I
to-
think we wanted to support them
Yeah.
to come
Yeah.
up with a good plan.
Yeah, no, I think they,
but I mean, I did take. The takeaway I took from the town meeting was, and it wasn't just about the DPW. There was a lot of, I think it was Bobby DeCosta who was kind of the
Yeah.
leader of the pack, but this notion of. You ask for a bit of money and then a bit more money, and then, out comes the big number. And we should know more about what the big number is before we start authorizing.
Approving the design
$1 million
money.
here and 2 million there, and,
Mm.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because then you're, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you sort of, you're going down, you're getting yourself drawn into something.
Uh-huh.
And the money's already been spent, and then
Well,
when
also-
people talk about it, like they kind of put that to one side. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what the big number that's left. And
So we have to be better. Or just vigilant when a project comes that has that sort
Yeah.
of weight behind it. Those first few steps that come through here, we have to figure out which ones those are and take note, and.
Yeah.
Well, could I
And
just-
but that's what our questions hopefully will sort of give us better guidance these days,
Well, like,
maybe
for
you want
example,
something to.
as an example to compare the two, like, it was good that Island Home had a fixed price. I mean, I think that was good. But like their design money was 8.5 million, right?
Yeah.
For X amount of square feet, the DPW building is 1.5 million for X amount of square feet. So maybe we can start thinking about those things.
Yeah.
And I know each project's a little different, like even how the housing trust is up saying, oh, we just want the whole amount. And then
I
other
mean,
projects,
yeah,
no,
well,
they're
I mean,
like, I
to
just
some-
want design
yeah.
money, like airport will just get design money and then they come back and
Just,
maybe we can.
yeah, to some extent, you need to expend design money to get an estimate of
But
what
you
you're gonna
need to know the
do.
square
you know.
footage and and if you know how much you're gonna spend on design, you
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
know the square footage.
Yep, no, I agree. There's
So you should
definitely,
find- And I realize that a shelf or garage is less expensive than.
No, but I mean, it's
know,
like, we're
Medicare
not
facility.
looking to get to at that stage. We're not looking to get to the last $100. We're looking to get like, is it 80 or is it 60 or is it 90? And I think what I took away from this is that there is a way. Let's just take the DPW. there is a way to get to a much closer number without spending money. As close as doing it with all the design, no, but to, you know, because the 80 million didn't even show up on the, you know, it was never
I
talked
know,
about.
I know.
It didn't,
Just so you know, there's a 2 million that wasn't spent on design. In OIH at the 8.5.
Oh, okay, so it was just 6.5.
Yeah.
I mean, Don, I'm not picking on OAH about it, they have a lot of,
That's
Well, no,
they have a lot of state criteria
Yes.
that like.
fine. I mean, in regard to OIH though, I think sorry, I'm totally interrupting you, but I think all projects should be bid this way. So we can go with a real number.
yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
No,
but
this
I
is
think
just a
that
really
that
good
design money
example.
They come
Yeah.
in is like, should indicate that the cost, what the cost is
Yeah.
gonna be a little bit, because like you're saying, they're already gonna know
Yeah,
what the square
because-
footage is, even if they don't know the layout.
if not, we're gonna end up with the result we just had.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't disagree, Dawn, but I think, you know, part of with OIH, one of the other things is it was, the message was pretty clear that this is the cost. There is no other way. This is the cost. So if something comes back now that is, you know, 40 million lower or whatever the number is, you know, I think that's going to call into question the whole process of making sure that the top level spec of what we want for anything that big is correct. And not, it's gotta be this, it's gotta be this, it's gotta be this. It goes down, well, maybe it could be that, maybe it could be that, maybe it could be that. You know, like that's a,
It is,
I think
that's a
there's more
rocky
we can
road.
know going into the
Yeah.
design process.
I agree.
For
I
approving
agree.
that money is what we're saying, so that we don't like, I feel bad for the committee that looked at all that and the voters said, okay, we'll authorize $8.5 million for a design. And then they stand up there, you know, years later and say, they act like, I didn't know it was gonna show her comments, and I'm like, oh my
Well-
gosh, you approved it, it was in the article that you.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't approve a design when, before
But that
you,
was a big
before you know
number.
the main cost?
That was a big number,
Because-
that was as much as
so-
the dorm
Yeah,
to
I mean, we
houses
don't-
people,
yeah.
it was a big number, like, I don't understand why, I don't know.
Yeah.
and this is, you know, I think another thing for me is that there are thresholds here, you know, if it's something that's not likely to be more than $5 million or 10 million, whatever. That's one thing, but if the number is gonna be, you know, north of 50 million, well, you know what, there needs to be a lot more visibility to that before anybody lifts a pen and signs any kind of check.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that the design money for DPW, to me, that didn't seem like it was that much.
Well, when
And so
people,
when they said no to that, I was like, okay, this is like.
yeah, they need to do some work. I mean, the problem is when someone's, you know, when something is excessive, people will write out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
not
you
approve
can't-
it.
You can't reel
And the
it.
whole thing about the square footage just is gonna be a ball buster for them.
Well, the town employee housing too, because, you know, then there was some. They said, well, we can build it, and then, well, we're not gonna be able to do all of it, and we are gonna have to come back from our money, which we did know, because she did tell us that in our meeting, so. But that, when that came out too.
Well, listen, it looks like going forward, we'll have a little more clarity in some of
Yeah.
these big projects to sort of help. You know, we're reacting to the community town meeting and the discussion that came up, and that's good. That's what, I mean, we really,
I think you're right.
you know,
You know, Jill, I've said this to you before, but I mean it. This committee is night and day from when I first joined it. It's not just process, but now there's a time for more dialogue. And that was kind of missing, you know, it was, you know, you went down this path and we'll put the number on, that's it. That's not the way to do any of it, let alone big ones. It isn't, and I think you
Right.
should be, you know, also, I'm so happy you're here doing this and
Thank
giving
you.
us the opportunity to speak.
yeah, no, it's been good.
Well, we're supposed